doing?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Goway Industry Insider webinar series, where you get to meet and hear from exactly that, industry insiders. Today, I have with me Ian Smyth, who's one of our national account managers for the US, and Ian just recently returned from Ghana. And on that wonderful trip, he was with Melissa Webster, who joined Ian on the trip to Ghana. And Melissa is one of our group specialists, but is also the team lead of our Africa team within the groups department. For those who may not know, Goway has one of the largest groups teams in North America. Mm-hmm. And like everywhere else in Goway, it's broken down into specialities. And we have a team that deals with Africa, Latin America, Down Under, etc. And as I just mentioned, Melissa is head of the Africa team for our groups department. And today's focus will be obviously Ghana, because of the trip these two just went on with a few other people, but also because Ghana has proven to Goway to be a very, very popular destination. And Melissa, can you tell our listening audience why Ghana is a very popular groups destination?
It was the year of no return, and they came back.
Yeah, they came back to sort of right the wrongs of the past, right?
Well, hang on. So wasn't the year of no return, wasn't that...
2019.
2019.
Say, yeah.
And didn't it celebrate, or wasn't it an anniversary of the beginning of the Atlantic slave trade? Was it a date-specific thing, or was it a time, to what Melissa's getting at, where the African-American community, particularly North America, felt a need to go back and reestablish, search for their roots? Would that be what it was about?
I think you're right. I'm trying to remember if it was an anniversary, and I don't remember the exact date. But what they did was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, I think they tracked down, it was the remains of 6 slaves that they ended up, and they were in, I think one was in Jamaica, one was in Barbados, South America, the United States, etc. And they brought them back to Ghana with their remains.
Okay.
And the symbol was to take them back through the door that they exited,
the door of no return,
at the castle, which is where they were held, before they were then put onto the ships. So it was essentially, this door had been kind of, cursed as an exit door. And they wanted to kind of undo that history and, reclaim the narrative. And now by bringing those people back through the door, they changed it from the door of no return to the door of return. And I think a lot of African Americans understand that. They're aware of that. And they then want to go there and see that door that, I don't remember, Melissa, if it was, I think I heard a figure of like 3 million over the course of the Atlantic slave trade ended up leaving Africa, which boggles the mind. But yeah, they wanted to kind of reclaim that door and reverse the history by bringing those remains back through. And then we ended up seeing the grave sites of, I think, 4 of the 6 that they brought back to Ghana. Yeah.
Okay, that I didn't know. I knew the year of return.
Yeah.
I didn't know the structure
around
it. So that's awesome, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And Ian, those 4 graves, those were the ones that were at the Slave River, right?
Yes. So that's another fascinating part of the whole story of the slave trade.
Okay, so we will get into that, because it's a key part to a visit to Ghana, be it one person or many people, be it white or black. Obviously, those of African American or African descent, it's much more meaningful than others who may just have an interest in that history.
Right.
But it's an important part of history in general, important part of Ghanaian history. But let's start the webinar off a little bit on a brighter note than talking about the enslavement of people.
Yeah.
So the trip was with Ian, who was obviously here, and Melissa. Who else went with you guys to Ghana?
Some of your colleagues, right, Melissa? They were mainly groups people.
Yeah, so we had 2 others from our groups department, Aisha and Nerea, and then we had 2 from our retail department, Yolanda and Gina.
Yes. all Goway people.
So it was a Goway fam. Okay. And obviously, apart from exploring a new country, our fams, like any fam, that's what they call familiarization fams, is to better understand the countries in which we sell. That goes from groups all the way through to our individual destination specialists. Had any of the group been to Ghana before?
No, I don't think so, right?
No.
Melissa?
No, not really. And Nerea had been to Accra once, but not really toured.
Okay.
Toured Ghana.
Now, in this new world of remote working and whatnot, we don't see a lot of Goway staff in buildings anymore.
Right.
Also, Goway is a huge company. We have people East, West Coast, working in Mexico, working in Australia, working everywhere. So I don't know a lot of these people by name nor by sight. Were there any African Americans or Canadian Africans? I guess that African.
Yes.
With you guys on the group.
Yep. There was one, Nerea.
Okay.
She is actually originally from Kenya.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And she lives. So imagine this: you go from Kenya to Winnipeg.
I couldn't imagine that at all. She did it, but I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, that's bad enough going from Toronto to Winnipeg, right? Not that there's anything wrong with Winnipeg.
It's just cold.
But to go from Kenya to Winnipeg. But
right.
She's Kenyan.
Okay, so again, she's not here to ask this question directly, but do you guys know how she was affected, if at all, by her trip to Ghana? Was that part of her, like, other than learning of a country from a professional point of view? Did she find it eye-opening, interesting? Again, I don't know. I wasn't there, but how did she see it through Canadian African eyes?
Yeah. I think we were all keenly aware of the fact that we were not African, right? Obviously, she was, and I think she was impacted differently than we were. We couldn't imagine, because of course we're very much arm's length of this story, if you will, whereas she was, I think, very moved by what Ghana offered her, particularly the Cape Coast area of Ghana.
Sure. Okay. So like we won't guess on her feelings. So let me ask you two. The history aside, what was your first impressions of Ghana? Having I'll throw this at Melissa first of all. Having never been there, Melissa, what was your impression of Ghana in general?
So for me, Ghana has been one of my top 5 bucket lists for over 20 years, because I've been selling Africa for 25 years. And everybody always asks me, why Ghana? And for me, it was just the cultural aspect and the history, the vibrancy of just everything around us. Like as Ian had never been to Africa before, we were just driving down the road and just life happens on the side of the road. Like they're selling bread, they're selling car tires, they're just selling everything. And he'd never experienced that. For me, I just felt like I was home as soon as I got off the plane. And the people were they're so amazing, so friendly. You walk in the market, everybody's saying hi to you. And with the Cape Coast, that affected me a lot. Like I was so emotional. You can't prepare for it. Our guide told us, it's going to be emotional and you need to prepare yourself.
Melissa,
yeah.
Just before you go on, just so people understand what we're talking about here, I'll leave this to Melissa to answer. What is the Cape Coast?
Okay, so the Cape Coast is where the Cape Coast Castle and the Elmina Castle is. So the Cape Coast Castle is where the slave dungeons were. So you would they had a men's dungeon and a women's dungeon. They would have no light, no bathrooms. They would put 300 men into one dungeon, and they were there for up to 3 months until the European slave ships came over to collect them. They gave them very little food because they wanted them weak so that they couldn't fight back and escape. So going into there, honestly, I don't think you can ever prepare yourself. The guides are very blunt about what it smelled like, what it felt like, and you're in there and it is emotional. It's horrific.
Wow. Yeah, horrific.
The last step drops a bit. Now let's keep to the left.
part, that really affected me, and I couldn't go into the women's dungeon. I just couldn't do it. Ian, I think you went into it, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it was really, I wanted to immerse myself in it and experience Ghana and learn all about, like, you had the heavy stuff of the Cape Coast, then you had the light stuff of making your own boutique and doing a cooking class and going through markets. And so there's a wide variety to do. And we even went out one night and danced and had a good time. Like, it was, so there's is it called yin and yang, maybe, of the experience. It's heavy, but it's also really light. And we got to go to a naming ceremony village, which that was a highlight for me. So yeah.
Can you explain what a naming ceremony is for us?
Yeah, so we arrange our groups to, basically, you get your African name. So the whole village shows up, and it was basically women and children. They came and they collected us, and we did a dance in a circle. There was all the guys were drumming, and it was very festive. And then each of us got they chose an African name for us, and they gave us a beaded bracelet and a little pot that had our actual name and then our African name on it. So for me, it was really emotional. I thought it was a wonderful experience. I absolutely loved it. And lots of singing and dancing and drumming. And then we actually donated a bunch of school supplies, our team did, to the village. Yeah. So that was really great.
Okay, so again, we are going to jump around a bit here because just we go where the conversation takes us. So people going to Ghana, based on what Melissa just told us, I can see, and having built the training academy for it, hint, hint, plug, that Ghana is not only about the history, predominantly about the Atlantic slave trade. There's a lot more to the country, coastal and interior. But as Melissa just mentioned, Ian confirmed, if a client, be it couple traveling or a group, they can bring with them supplies for schools, etc. So on that note, with supplies being sought after, being requested, being appreciated, is Ghana, I'll throw this at Ian, a rich country, a poor country, a developing country? How would you, basically through Western eyes, how would you look at it?
Right. I think it's definitely, it's well-to-do. Okay. Like Accra, the capital, which is where we started, is quite a bustling city. It's certainly African, but it is rather well-to-do. They have a commercial district. They have shopping malls. They have nice highways in and around Accra. Of course, if you get into the rural areas, I think that's where you start to see a little more of the, the poverty of the nation. But I wouldn't describe it as overly poor. I think it's developing, right? And there are parts of Accra that are absolutely beautiful and could compete with any sort of, Western city in that regard.
Okay, to give a comparison, I guess, talking Accra, will a traveller find the McDonald's, the Burger Kings, that type of development? Or is it still, for those who are watching, we've got Melissa going, emphatic no. So it's not that sort of type of development.
I'm trying to remember. We did not see a Starbucks, correct?
There was no North America. There's no Starbucks, McDonald's.
I think there was a KFC. There was one Burger King.
Oh, yeah. Was it a Burger King?
KFC they had. The Burger King they had.
Burger King seems to be in more places than
McDonald's?
Yeah. I've seen Burger through Latin America. You wouldn't see McDonald's, but a Burger King would be hanging around there somewhere.
It's interesting. I would say that it is unlike, like I was saying this to somebody last week, it doesn't matter where you are in North America. You could be plopped down in Burlington, Vermont, or, Santa Fe, New Mexico, apart from the topography, etc. It's got the same stuff, right? Same stores. Ghana is unlike anywhere else that you've been, no matter, and it's not that's not a negative. I mean, it's like we had one of our dinners, I think it was called the Polo Club, right by the airport. Beautiful restaurant. I would challenge anybody to, look at a picture of us at the Polo Club. That was just the name of the restaurant. It wasn't a polo club from what I could see. But I would challenge anyone to look at us in that picture and say that we were in Ghana. We were in Accra. The food was phenomenal. The service, I mean, it was just like any other Western place.
Yeah.
As soon as you, of course, step outside the doors, you
You're
realize
in Ghana.
hey, you're in Ghana,
Right.
and that's what you want.
Yeah,
Because you
100%.
are reminded every single day that you are someplace very different than anywhere else.
Well, again, we were talking just before we came on air, so to speak, comparing, or I was stating that very few people go to Western Africa, which is Ghana, Togo, Benin, Ivory Coast, etc., because the fame and fortune has gone to East and Southern Africa, rightly so, like it's beautiful countries, cultural. Wildlife is the big pull for the most part over there. But Western Africa is not as well known. And that leads to my question to Melissa. Is Ghana, as that's our topic today, is it developed from a tourism point of view, infrastructure, roads, getting around, hotels? Will a traveller, go into a developing tourism country, or they go into a country that's established for travellers?
No, 100%. I think after being there, their tourism infrastructure is fantastic. So Accra, you've got 5-star hotels. You've got the Movenpick and Labadi Beach. You've got 5-star hotels. When you get into like the Cape Coast area and Elmina, you don't have your 5-star hotels. They're probably still a really good 3-star. They're just basic, but that's to be expected. I think they haven't got the infrastructure there yet for like the big name hotels, but you're still going to be comfortable. You're still going to have a drink by the pool and, that type of thing. There's still, so I think absolutely the roads were great. So that wasn't a problem. I've been to East Africa where, you've blown a tire 5 minutes down the road. Down there, we didn't have a problem. The vehicles were all great. The guides were fantastically trained. Like I've been to Africa a lot of times, so I've been through a lot of guides, and our guide was phenomenal. He was very great, very well knowledgeable. And when you go to each site, you also get an on-site guide. So that's further knowledge, and they specialize just what you're seeing, like at the Cape Coast, or if you're even at, a Kente, the Bonwire village where you're doing Kente cloth, you have a guide specifically at that location. So
excellent. And again, for those listening who may not know of Goway services, we are predominantly private guided as well. So I assume your touring was that for your group, private guided. And as Melissa mentioned, you get your guide that's with you, and then I did know this, that in each location, which makes perfect sense as well, you get local guides with that highly local knowledge. Is Ghana a safe country to visit?
Yeah, that was one of the things that I've had so many conversations done with agents, advisors that since I've been back that are interested in what did I see when I was in Ghana? And that is something that I have said to every single one that I had a conversation with. You will feel safe. You will feel secure. It didn't matter where we were. And we weren't always with a guide. Sometimes we were on our own. Melissa was alluding to one night we were out, some of us were dancing. I didn't quite have enough, what do you call it, libation or something like that?
Chutzpah, whatever it is.
It was that Ghana soccer team that got us out on the dance floor.
Yes, yes.
Really?
But, there we were. We stuck out. Let's face it.
Well, I was going to ask you, I'm going to again jump around. So as white people, as European people in Western Africa, not so much Ghana, just Western Africa, which doesn't see as high a influx of European or Anglo-Saxon travellers, and as we've already touched on, a lot of African Americans would be, at the moment anyway, would be the main tourists coming in for the reasons we discussed. What was it like being the Westerners?
Yeah, the white dude.
The white dude. And
right.
The white
Yeah,
and
I'm
the
just putting it out there. Ian had no dance moves at the village ceremony.
Oh, okay.
He was doing the running man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I danced like a white dude.
Do we have video of that?
Oh, yeah. There's video.
Good.
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
Let me tell you this. So one day we were doing the canopy walk, okay? Right? Every country seems to have this. And one of the people on the tour did not want to continue on those platforms, the bridges. So I decided I would hang back with her. And we then proceeded to take about probably 50 selfies. We had a lineup of people. I'm not kidding you.
Oh, right. So not selfies of you two, but you with locals.
Yes. So it was a lot of different school groups, probably late teens into early 20s. And they were literally lined up while we waited for the rest of the group to finish the canopy walk. These kids were lined up to do selfies with us. So my friend Gina was off on her sort of side getting the selfies, and I had another lineup. And so sometimes they'd come in as a group to take a picture with me, and then they all wanted an individual picture with me. So I was asking the guide. I mean, I understood why they wanted it.
Well, let me ask you, was it because you're a tourist, or because you're white, or because you're both?
Because I'm white. So
because you're white, okay.
Yeah. So he said, our guide that Melissa was talking about, who was with us the entire time, he said they want to be able to go back and post on their social media that they had a picture with a white dude.
Really?
Like that. Because
so it's still that. Well, I don't want to use the word foreign, but it's still that unusual to see tourists, and let alone white tourists, in Ghana.
It was very, and Melissa will probably concur, there was very few times where we were anywhere that we saw other white people.
Really?
Yeah. We were the odd ones.
Okay, so a couple of questions on that, Melissa, because you probably deal with this more, and as your groups person, how many people? I don't need an exact number, but how many people do you think are visiting Ghana? Like, is it a little, a lot, in between? Be it African Americans, be it other types of groups getting over maybe for the textile aspect of it. I guess what I'm saying, again, that's a hard one for you to answer. I know that. Is Ghana? I know it's popular for us, but is it a popular destination for Africa? Because you sell all of Africa.
No, absolutely. It's one of our. It has grown in the last 2 years substantially with our number of requests. And
but that is predominantly African American groups, or is it just people in general?
It's predominantly African American for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I have anybody other than African American groups.
Right. So for those out there, be it group-based or be it an individual traveler, I guess what I'm trying to feed the conversation to is that if you want to see Africa of old, and I don't mean old, but I mean authentic. That's perfect. Like an authentic Africa before tourism has made a big imprint on it. Ghana and Western African neighbours is the place to go, Melissa, because I believe after Ghana you went to Togo and Benin. Is that correct?
Yes. No, I just want to say, I know we have made the majority, all of our clients are African American, but I think any nationality, any type of group can go to West Africa, from textiles, just history. All of the guides they wanted us to learn and to teach us the history, teach us how they do wood carving, teach us about the slave trade. They were all very informative and proud, and they wanted, all of them said this isn't a bad thing. We're just wanting to make sure we don't repeat our past. Right. So 100%, I fully believe anybody, any race can go. You can learn a lot, definitely.
Yeah, and I agree with that personally. Anywhere you go, let alone Ghana. But again, we have emphasized and highlighted the Atlantic slave trade, which has obvious resonance to those of African descent. But I believe it's equally important for those who are not African to understand what happened. And I can tell by you two and your comments that you were definitely moved by what happened, how it happened, why it happened, I guess, as well. But on the flip side of that, Ghana is not only about the Atlantic slave trade. As you mentioned, there's some beautiful coastal areas. You can do wildlife, like you can do a traditional safari if you want to go inland into Ghana as well. So in the training academy module, what I highlighted is, again, obviously the aspects we've discussed today, but Ghana is, again, an African, authentic, to use Ian's word, but it's also a country where you can do everything, from the traditional African wildlife safari to learning about some pretty harrowing history. On that note, because if someone came to either one of our destination specialists or our groups, Melissa, and they said, right, I want to do this, I'm looking at Kenya and Tanzania, and I'm looking at Ghana. From a cost point of view, what will be the cheaper option?
Ghana would be cheaper, just to the simple fact, Kenya and Tanzania, you've got park fees every day, a driver guide with you, you're doing game drives, and all your meals are included. Kenya, Tanzania would be more expensive. But Ghana, though, you're looking, it's not a cheap destination. A lot of people think it is, but the average cost of like 7 days can be $3,000 US.
Okay.
So,
and again,
realistic expectations of budget, because people think it's going to be, inexpensive.
Cheap, and it's not. Yeah. Okay. And again, just to emphasize too that Eastern Africa and Southern to that degree is much more wildlife based, and has all the iconic sites. The Serengeti, the migration, Mount Kili, Zanzibar, the Maasai. Southern, you get all your traditional wildlife experiences. So they're not a comparable destination in respect to what you will see and do. All I'm emphasizing is that you can still see the wildlife in Ghana, but experience the history and a whole lot of other things, which I don't think you would get the same. Again, I've been to Africa a lot, but not as much as Melissa, so I'll ask her. I think you would get more bang for your buck in all the things you can see and do and experience in Ghana versus Eastern Africa. Is that a fair statement? Am I being too generous on Ghana in that respect?
So Ghana, like from a game viewing perspective, it's not a big five, right? Like you'll get in East Africa. So if people are sort of wanting a game and the Ghana culture, I would mix Ghana with Kenya. It's an easy flight, direct flight. So you could do that, maybe hit the Masai Mara after you visit Ghana. I've done that a number of times. So that's an option for game and
I hadn't
culture.
actually, because that I guess leads to a question I hadn't thought about. But Ghana can quite easily, and by your recommendations, be a combination with another East African country, let alone obviously a West African country.
Yes.
So you could do a Kenya-Ghana combination, Kenya-Tanzania. Ghana, Kenya, Ghana, Tanzania, from a close geographical point of view. But that does segue nicely to a question I did have. How did you guys get to Ghana? Because Ian's based here in Toronto. Melissa, you're out west in Vancouver. Did we have any US-based people?
No.
Goway people with us?
No, just Canada.
Okay. I know Melissa will know the answer. I know you will, Ian, but I'll ask Melissa. How do you get to Ghana from either Canada or the US?
So for us, we flew KLM. So I flew Vancouver direct to Amsterdam. And then the group all met up in Amsterdam. And then we flew direct with KLM to Accra. So on the way...
Are there any...
way home, you can have the option of flying like through Paris or through Amsterdam as well, because of course Air France, KLM code share. Okay,
so by the statement you just made of going via somewhere, there are no direct flights from the US or Canada to Accra?
No.
It's via Europe primarily?
Yes.
Can you fly via the Middle East, like Emirates and those people? Because they often will connect throughout.
Yeah, I think you can. And I think you can also do Turkish Airways, can't you, Ian? I think maybe.
Yep. Turkish Airways was there. The airport in Accra, I will tell you again, huge, modern, bright, clean, organized. I mean, again, I'd be challenged to say that you're in Ghana when you're inside the airport. Very modern airport. Okay. And, so, I mean, imagine anywhere from the East Coast, Philly, Chicago, D.C., any one of those major gateways, as Melissa says, whether it's, Air France to Paris, certainly the Amsterdam, I cannot say enough how easy it is to transit in Amsterdam, and then a quick, I think it was 6 hours, 5 and a bit, Melissa, from Amsterdam into Accra. And, easy peasy. But, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that, because Melissa was talking about there's so much to do and see and experience. The other thing that I think struck me was the fact that we were in Accra on our last night. We stayed at Labadi Beach, and we would be hard-pressed again to not to say that we were in Ghana. So we were at this beautiful, everybody loved it in the group. Everybody loved the fact that, we had this beach experience as well.
Right.
In Accra. Like, the beach is massive. Like, the ocean, there's nothing, because, Ghana, where it's positioned, it's...
Well, I also believe there's kite sailing in
huge.
Ghana,
Yep.
surfing as well.
Oh,
so
yeah.
again, back to my original point, there's a lot to do as well as the typical... Sorry, if I can just back up again. So from the getting there point of view, the majority is via Europe or the Middle East.
Right.
So stopovers can be arranged as well. And as Melissa already mentioned, you can connect to Eastern Africa as well in regards to getting there. So Ian, sorry, I just wanted to jump in on that. That's all.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, so, imagine you arrive in Accra, you do the Accra city tour, you're introduced to Ghana, Africa, etc. You drive 4 hours, 3 and a bit, whatever it was, from Accra to Cape Coast. As Melissa says, you're driving along the coast. We're heading, east? And along the road, you see everything being sold. Everything, as Melissa said, from car parts to screen doors to bread.
Right.
Beds.
It's bizarre.
Beds,
Shoes.
You mentioned there was coffins.
Coffins. Yeah. Yep. So
that's a whole
this
other
is along
story.
the
You
road.
have to ask
whole-
us about the coffins.
Yes.
Okay. Well, do I ask you now?
Yep. Ask Melissa, because she got out and took pictures, and we're
Okay,
going to have
Melissa.
pictures posted on our Instagram next week.
Okay. Well,
of what Melissa's going to be talking about.
I'll probably throw some up for this as well. So, Melissa, tell us about the coffins in Ghana.
So we actually have a tour where you can go see the coffins. And when I first ask clients, do you want to go see the coffins? It's no, that sounds morbid, but it's actually fascinating, because what they do is the coffins are not your regular coffin. They're like airplanes, beer bottles,
Oh, really?
turtles. So what you're passionate about or what you like, you're buried in that coffin. So if you're a pilot, you'd be buried in an airplane or a helicopter. And they make them
Really?
in that, it looks just like it. There was an ice
Made of
cream
what?
cone.
Made of wood or made of whatever?
Made of wood. Yeah, the carvers are there. They make them, they paint them, and it looks just like what it was. There was a
Whatever you
local
asked for.
beer coffin even. Like it's amazing to see.
How expensive would that be for a local to bury their loved one in something so ornate? That's got to be.
It's
the cost
bizarre.
to it,
I've never
yeah.
seen it anywhere before. I mean, I'm sure it exists, but
Well,
there
it
they
does.
are.
It exists in Ghana, yeah.
It exists in Ghana.
Yeah.
So, it's all of this is to say, what a fascinating destination. I've told people, you need to go to Ghana.
Well, yeah. I was jealous when you went. I want to go as well, because I'm like Melissa. I don't want to say it's been a bucket list, because it was never on my radar until I came to Goway. But as I learnt about Africa, and I'm a history nut, as you know, Ian. My pull as a white person would be to go to learn about the Atlantic slave trade. But as I built the training academy, I realized, wow, this country is more than just that. And it's more than just groups as we see it right now. There is much more for group trips. There is, as Melissa's mentioned a couple of times, there's the textile aspect of it. There's the culinary aspect of it as well. There's sporting, surfing,
Beads.
that type of thing. And then for the individual traveler, all the above as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, as far as I can see, Ghana has it all.
Yeah.
And it's unlike any other place that I've visited. And then when you're there, it's relatively inexpensive. Like, a meal at a restaurant. It's not costly. Like, $30 is going to get you a nice entree, a couple of drinks, like all in 30. And
that's US or Canadian, just for our listeners.
US dollars,
US
right?
dollars, okay.
Or less. I mean, a beer was, I think we paid $2 for a beer.
And again, you're sort of quoting restaurants. If you start eating locally off the streets, and it's like everywhere, it's even
less,
even cheaper. So, Melissa, be it a group or be it an FIT, an individual traveller, ballpark budget, which you did already mention, but ballpark budget and the ideal length of time to visit Ghana.
Yeah, I think you're going to look at least like land only is usually about 3,000, 7 days.
And that US or Canadian?
That's US.
Okay.
it all obviously depends if you're going to stay at the 5-star Movenpick or you're going to stay, at a 4-star Lancaster hotel in Accra, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I think at least a good 7 days. Like, so you get your Accra in, you get the Cape, at least a night in the Cape Coast, night or two. If you've got the time, you go down to the Shanty Kingdom area to learn about that.
Yep.
And that was fascinating. That's where we learned about the kente cloth and the wars that went on down there. So you need a good 7 days. Ideally, if you want to see everything, I would give you 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Okay. So for your best of or the highlights, 7, and for your complete, for want of better terms, 10 days.
Yeah, I would think. Ian, what did we do? We did 9 days?
We did 9 days in total.
Yeah.
And again, like we talked on getting there, so it's like it'd be a day and a half calendar days to get there. Like leave on a Friday, you get there Saturday night, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And coming back with time changes, is it one of those things you arrive before you left, time wise, or is it another day and a bit coming back?
Day.
I mean. It's a day. I mean, and the thing of it is, you're flying straight north, right, to whatever European gateway, if it's Amsterdam or Paris or whatever, even I guess London, because your BA is there. You're losing an hour because you're going to Central European time, but they fly out at night so that you arrive into your European gateway early morning for your midday flight back to North America. So you're back in North America, East Coast anyway. 3-4 o'clock, of course, if it's further
and
west.
Coast. Okay, so basically from a planning point of view, so Melissa, when you say 7 to 10 days, you're talking in country.
Yeah.
Excluding any air time or time in the air.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you add air to that, you're talking like anywhere from 11 to maybe, no, hang on. You said 7, so like 9 to maybe 12 days in total with your flight time included. Okay, cool. Okay, I think we've covered most things. Is there anything, Ian, you'd like to mention that we touched on?
I want to mention one thing that did strike me when I was there, and we went to the Slave River, and I think everybody agreed that we've seen it on the Goway itinerary, the Slave River, but doesn't really, like what is a slave river, right? Right. And what it was essentially a marketplace because of course the slaves were coming for weeks. They were on the move from wherever.
Again, just on that point, it wasn't Ghana as probably Ghana didn't exist as a country then, but it wasn't from that region. It was from all over Western Africa. It was being funneled into is Ghana. Yeah, right.
So if you can imagine, they're on their way towards, the Cape Coast area of Ghana, which is right on the shore of the Atlantic. Right. The goal is to get them to the castle, where they would stay until the ships pick them up. Anyway, one of the last stops was the Slave River, and it was essentially a river, but it was a marketplace, and the slaves were put into the river to clean themselves, and they were then brought out of the river, lined up. I mean, I'm giving a kind of a crude kind of explanation of it. It was a little bit more elaborate than that, but anyway,
of course,
the slaves were then brought out of the river, and by the way, they were in the river with these, of course, the ball and chain attached to their ankle, and the thing around their neck
collars,
with spikes sticking out, so it was very difficult for them to escape. Anyway, they were then brought out of the river after they had a chance to clean themselves off. They were purchased, they were branded, then they were taken for the remainder, which would be about a 7-day walk, about 50 kilometers south towards Cape Coast Castle or Elmina, wherever they were going to be housed, if you will. And the guy that was taking us around that day, who was very, again, as Melissa said, extremely knowledgeable on the history of the Slave River, he had sort of broached the fact that we were all white. And one of the things that he said that stuck in my mind, and I've heard it before, but never quite said in this way, and that was that if we cut each other, of course, we all bleed red, which is, you wouldn't know anyone's nationality or
Of course,
ethnicity
based on their blood.
based on blood. You can't, right? It's red is red. And what he said is, you are all white, and I am obviously African, and that is God showing his creativity. So
Nice.
that we are all different colors, shapes, sizes, etc. That's God showing his creativity and his beauty and his love for us. But at the core, inside of us,
We're all the same.
we're all equal.
Yep, 100%. That was very deep.
And also,
Melissa,
I just
how are you going to follow up on that?
Can I just add to that? Like at the Slave River, the guide had told us, like, we can do, for groups, we can do ceremonies as well. Like everybody dresses in white and they all walk the
Yep.
path down to the river. Like we can arrange special ceremonies like that. Same with at the Cape Coast at the castle. I've arranged ceremonies on the beach where they've celebrated going through the door, and we've had like local drummers and everybody celebrating it. So there's a lot of unique things that we can do in the groups department as well.
Okay, so that's worth pointing out because while we want people to know that Ghana is more than just the slave trade, it is still a very, very important reason for a very large demographic to go to Ghana. Some of that community, the African American community, may just want to go and see it, and that's enough. It's probably more than enough for a lot of people, but there might be others looking for relatives through the family tree. And I had a conversation with, I can't remember who it was about this, and it's, when you hear it out, to put your point, when you hear it spoken, it's obvious, but it's also quite enlightening in that, because I said, like, how can you find your relatives? And it's, well, they were, unfortunately, they were like cattle. They were property. They were recorded, they being the slaves. Their names, as they were known then, were put on a ledger somewhere. So if people can find that history, it's a lot of it's written down, and you can find your relatives. My point is, it's more than just a visit to these places. It can be a place of reflection, a place of connection. And as Melissa's touched on, we on the group's behalf or the individual's behalf can assist in any type of ceremony or activity that may bring that person or people closer to what they're searching for. So even that might be one of the known ceremonies. Just ask Melissa or the group's people or your destination specialist of what you may want to do, what you can do, and without promising the world, 9 times out of 10 we can get it delivered for you at that very personal level as well.
I want to say one final thing, and that is the door of no return at particularly Cape Coast Castle, but they all had a door of no return where they all were funneled out. The importance of me telling this story is that I think in the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it's going to become more popular. If you go now, like we did, you will be taken in a small group. So we were then walked out of the castle through the door of no return, and we're standing there listening to the guide, and around us, and you, Melissa, you'll remember this, there were 2 or 3 kids playing. They were like right there at the door of no return. There was an old man kind of working on a fishing net because it's a big fishing village. And I was kind of watching him out of the corner of the eye, and the kids were kicking a ball around the door of no return. So this major historic, symbol.
Landmark,
Yeah. And it's so authentic that there's no gates around it. There's no tourist trap around it. There was an old guy putting together a fishing line, and he told the kids, because the guide was talking, and he told the kids, get out of here, go away, go play your ball down there. And I think to myself, wow, like that's how this is not, I don't know what I'm trying to describe.
Well, I guess, like, without putting words in your mouth, what I'm hearing you try, or what you're saying to me, I'd express it as it's a very pivotal part of history.
Yeah.
But it's very, very unassuming.
It's very unassuming.
If you didn't know, it would just be a door.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Yet I think in 5 or 6 years from now, it's going to be a big deal, or maybe 7 years. I don't know. It's going to be a bigger deal, and maybe it'll be cornered off, and you'll be able to look at it from standing back 300 feet or something like that.
And not actually walk through it.
And not actually watch through it or touch it or just be alone. Like the guide then took the group of 8 of us or 9 of us, and you could have hung back and just touched the door and just hung out there and soaked it all in. Like, I just think it's amazing that we can still do that. Yeah,
and that's a very good point, because from an experiential point of view, it's got no comparison. But just from how things develop and how quickly they do, I did a lot of touring, leading groups through Central and South America, and years ago I went to Chichen Itza, and it was at the time you weren't allowed to walk in the pyramids at the time, but you could get access. You could walk through all the remains. When I went back 4 or 5 years ago, it was a zoo.
Yeah,
you couldn't touch anything, which is the right thing to do.
Right.
It was frustrating because there were so many people, and there were like the walkway into the main square where the famous pyramid is was just lined with vendors. Yeah. And there's a walkway down to a very famous cenote, which is a big waterhole, which when I did it, there was no one there. Yeah. You'd walk down. Right. It's just full of people selling stuff. It's
lined up.
It's horrendous. It's horrible. I was lucky enough to see it when it wasn't like that. I think Ian and Melissa, because Melissa's nodding her head as well. I think that would be the key message to leave you with everyone today, based on what Ian and Melissa have told me. And my understanding of it is get there now before it's overdeveloped, before it becomes exceptionally popular and everyone's wanting to do it. And that probably more so for the African American community as well. If you want to see it in some tranquility and peace, I guess, now's the time. So regardless of your motives, your reasoning, your wants, get to Ghana now. But as I didn't go, I'll leave the last word to Melissa. Melissa, is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners and viewers with about Ghana, particularly from a group's point of view?
Yeah, I've been to Africa so many times, and Ghana was everything I did in Ghana, everything was the first time I'd ever done it. Yeah. So that to me was amazing because it's so unique and it's such a special place. And I can't say enough about the people, how friendly they are and welcoming, and they just want to embrace you and tell you their history. And that made the trip even more amazing. I cannot say enough about how wonderful the country is. And if you go, I guarantee you will just be overwhelmed with emotion. And it's an amazing place. It's a hidden gem right now, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not going to try and follow that up because I think Melissa just summed it up beautifully and succinctly. So on that note, Ian, thank you very much for your time today. Melissa as well, thank you very much. Anyone out there, if you want more information on Ghana, you can call in to our Africa team, the destination specialists there. Of course, if you have a group, you can contact Melissa and anyone else in our Africa groups team who can get you there as soon as you want. They can assist with anything you need to see and do in country in Ghana, be it culturally based, wildlife based, anything based. We can make it happen for you. Just ask. We'll see what we can do. Everyone out there, thank you also for your time. Appreciate that, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
That's it. All done. Big deep breath from Melissa.
1, 2, shake, shake. 1, 2, shake, shake, and then you go. 1, 2, shake, shake. 1, 2, shake, shake. 1, 2, shake, 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 shake. Abba, shake, shake. Dia nana, dia nani, dia oh, dia nana, dia nani, dia nana, dia nani, dia oh, dia nana, dia nani. Usukoroni jori jori mukuna tegena te yalla korosi, tuma tuma kele, kele fe. Usukoroni jori jori mukuna tegena te yalla korosi, tuma tuma yada, yada fe. Dia nana, dia nani, dia oh, dia nana, dia nani. And then you go 1, 2, shake, shake. 1, 2, shake, shake. 1, 2, shake, 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 shake. Abba, shake, shake. Dia nana, dia nani, dia oh, dia nana, dia nani, dia nana, dia nani, dia oh, dia nana, dia nani. Usukoroni yori yori mukuna tegena te.